Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday, happy Friday Eve. As I like to say, I hope that your day, your evening has been a good one and that you have 15 to 20 minutes to settle in with me for just a little bit. So this is night four of the 4 ways to be intentional about finding your joy. If this is the first time that you are joining me, then I do encourage you to go back and look at the videos from earlier this week where I shared the first 3 ways to be intentional about finding your joy. You can get all the details on those specific ways, and you can also get a pen, a piece of paper, or a pencil, and settle in with me for tonight's conversation. So, just in case you missed the other conversations, let me first just give you the first way that I mentioned earlier this week is to just make a decision that you want to connect with joy. The second way that I shared was to check your surroundings. Last night, I talked about redirecting your energy, and then I will share the fourth on tonight. But before I do that, I do want to take this opportunity to introduce myself for those of you who may never have been in conversation with me before. And maybe this is the first time that you are entering into space with me. So I am Erica Salee, speaker, self-help author, transformation success coach, and owner of True Synergy. And True Synergy is a personal and professional development coaching company. And I help women and organizations to figure out what stands in the way. Quite frankly, sometimes we step out there, we want to do something, or we're thinking about trying to achieve a goal or resetting ourselves or creating the best version of ourselves, which I love to say because I think we all have the opportunity to do just that on a regular basis. And so I love having conversations with the person who is ready to move from where they are right now to where they want to be and just taking the next best step in order to do that. And so part of that is sharing strategies to help you move around the barriers, because sometimes things don't move, but we can move around those things. And so tonight is a conversation that gives you a little taste of what that might look like. And so as I mentioned a few seconds ago, this conversation is all about the 4 ways to be intentional about finding your joy. Let me tell you why this conversation is so important right now. Not only is it holiday season, and I recognize that many of us have different feelings about the holiday. Some of us get really excited about it because we enjoy time with family and friends, or just the spirit of the holiday itself makes us excited. But others may not be as excited about this time of year. And we have to understand that many people suffer from seasonal affect disorder, which is, oh God, it gets darker earlier and the seasons change. And so it just puts me in a different mood. Or maybe you are experiencing a type of loss that does not allow you to enjoy the holiday. And so I do want to be mindful that we are all on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to joy. And so I'm hoping that something in the conversation over the course of this week is something that will help you to be more intentional about what that might look like for you. And then, of course, the backdrop of this conversation, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but the backdrop of this conversation really stems from the things that I talk about in my brand new book. I'm Here Now What? Finding Joy After the Storm. And so I use this book as a tool to be able to share with others that no matter what transition you're going through, whether it's divorce, whether it's loss of another type of relationship, loss of a job, or whether you're just in a place where you feel stuck, then this book is a good tool for you. And so that's where this conversation comes from. So I just wanted to pull a few things out of the book and just from my own experience and share it with you as we are entering into this holiday season. And quite frankly, as we are preparing for a brand new year. It baffles me that tomorrow is December 1st, because that means that the new year is just around the corner. I know this is the time when many people are looking to figure out what next looks like for them. And so hopefully this conversation is the thing that will propel you into really thinking about, focusing on, and taking action on what that can look like for you. So let's just jump right into it. As I mentioned, this conversation is all about the 4 ways to be intentional about finding your joy. So tonight, way number 4 is to connect with self. I just want to leave this right here for a minute. Just connect with self, connect with self, connect with self. So what does that mean? So connecting with self means that you shut out distractions, that you find quiet space to be still, that you let your mind and your body slow down, that you reflect on what brings you fulfillment and ways to pursue those things. I think I want to read that one more time. Connect with self, shut out distractions, find quiet space to be still. I know that many of us have a hard time being still, but that is connecting with self. Let your mind and your body slow down. Reflect on what brings you fulfillment and ways to pursue those things. And I should add, on a regular basis. So let me say this. For anybody who has ever seen me post anything on social media, whether you've had a conversation with me, if you're a client of mine, if you're a friend or family member, you know this is probably, out of all the four things, this is probably the one that is nearest and dear to my heart. Because one of the things that I think is so very important is that we recognize how important it is to connect with self. Notice what I said in this description: to shut out distractions. I talked about this the other day when I talked about one of the ways being to redirect your energy, and sometimes shutting out distractions is part of that. And this is probably a common theme that you've heard throughout the course of the week, is that sometimes distractions can be people, places, or things. And so in order to connect with self, sometimes we have to tell people, you know what, I can't do that right now. Or I'm in the middle of taking care of some things for me. I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. That is shutting out distractions. It is finding quiet space to be still. I know that we often have this mentality that we can just keep moving and we can keep doing, and we don't have to stop. We don't have to sit down. We don't have to pause. We don't have to take a break, because we're just wired to keep going. And at the end of the day, that is so much of a myth. And so when we stop and we really take a moment to just sit down, not answer the phone, not send a text message, not check the emails, and just be still, it's amazing how much we can incorporate into this connection of finding joy. Because when we slow down, it may give us the opportunity to connect with things that we may miss if we're constantly moving. I was looking out the window earlier today, and I noticed there was just this beautiful, I call it the cotton candy sky. There were touches of pink and touches of blue. And sometimes when I see this, I just see it sparsely, right? But this image, it was like all across the sky. And I just remember looking up and I was like, wow, look at that cotton candy sky. But if I had been like moving around, and I think this was probably between preparing for dinner, I was getting ready to jump in the shower just to make myself look presentable for tonight's conversation. And I just had to stop for a minute and just look up at the awesome beauty of God and nature. And so when we do slow down, it gives us an opportunity to just see beauty, which allows us to then connect with joyful things or feeling joyful. Letting your mind and your body just slow down. Like, I know if you're like me right now, even as you are watching this live, or if you happen to come in and you see the replay, you probably have like 4 or 5 things running through your mind right about now. Just be honest. I know I've got a list of things that when this is done, and I go back and get seconds for dinner because I cooked dinner and I ate before I jumped on, but I was like, oh, after the broadcast, I'm gonna have to go back and get some more. So after I do that, there are things that I need to take care of. But when we slow down enough, it just really allows us to be present and to observe and to just be in a space where maybe we don't have to make decisions, or maybe we don't have to answer phone calls, or maybe we don't have to tell somebody what to do, or we don't have to tell somebody what we need, or we don't have to listen to what somebody else needs, whatever that is. And we can just take a moment. That is a joyful space, connecting with self, reflecting on what brings you fulfillment. I say this often, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's very important. If you know that one of the things that you do on a regular basis is check in with other people, and you are focused on and concerned about, well, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that brings you joy? What is it that brings you fulfillment? And you are constantly asking that question out. Connecting with self says that now you are bringing that inward and you're taking the opportunity to say, well, wait a minute. What is it that makes me happy? What is it that makes me joyful? So, when I talk about this idea of happiness and joy, I do want you to go back and check out the video from night number one, I think. I can't remember, don't quote me, but that means go back and look at all of them. But I talk about the difference between happiness and joy. So when you really connect with self, you are giving yourself an opportunity to say, well, wait a minute, well, what does bring me joy? I was just having a conversation with my daughter and, listening to her, what she was saying was so connected to tonight's conversation. So I said, hey, I want to mention this in the live stream. Is it okay? She did give me permission to share. So her birthday is Saturday. And so tomorrow she said, I think I'm going to have just an end day. She's going to take time to give herself, do a mask. She said, I'm going to take a bath, maybe just read a little bit. She said, I really just want to have one of those days where I'm just not doing anything and really just focusing on me. And so that was the quintessential example of what this way, number 4, connecting with self, is all about. I absolutely love those moments when I can take a bath, I can just read something, or I can listen to something, or maybe I'm listening to a sermon, or just kind of being in a space, having a glass of wine or having a cup of coffee and just being reflective. And so when you connect with self, you really are giving yourself the opportunity to be in tune with what it is that you like or what it is that you don't like. Now, I say that I love to focus more on what we like and what we want versus what we don't like, what we don't want, because that's a whole nother conversation where we start to create something more of what we don't want. But I'm not going to get into too much of that tonight. But suffice it to say that this is the time. So today is November 30th. It is the last day of the month. So as we move into December, the first day of a new month, and the last month of the year, goodness gracious, can you believe that? This is the perfect time to start asking yourself a question. How am I connecting with myself? Am I giving myself enough time to slow down? And let me just say this. This is probably an area where you really have to be intentional, where we're so used to not investing in ourselves. This is a whole chapter in the book that I devote to self-care, Number 1, because it's one of the things that I relied on when I was going through my divorce. And it is the thing that is necessary. And I do want to pause right here and say this, that as a transformation success coach, and you might say, well, what does that really mean? Transformation success coach is exactly what it says. It is my role to help you change or transform from where you are right now to the next, right? And to give you the tools and the methods and the strategies to help you be successful at that. All right. So a lot of times when people talk about wanting to change or wanting to do something new, they want to achieve a goal, or there's something that's really been gnawing at them and they want to do that, but they're so weighed down with stress and anxiety and priorities and having difficulty creating boundaries and not saying no to yourself and yes to everybody else. So with all of that being said, the only way to really shift that is to turn the light on yourself and connect with self in such a way that you are honoring yourself with self-care, well-being, that you are focusing on your wellness so that it opens up space for anything else that you want to do. You will hear me say this over and over and over and over and over and over, because I truly do believe that those things are so intertwined. Like, oh, I want to take this next step. I want to go after this new job. I want to write a book. I want to start a business. I want to be a community leader, whatever it is that you decide you want to do. But you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. Oh my gosh, well, no, I can't afford to take care of me because everybody else needs me. Everybody else needs my attention. So the minute that we shift that around and we connect to self, then you start to realize, oh, wait. When I connect with myself, when I learn to be still, when I weed out the distractions, when I give my mind and my body an opportunity to slow down, then it opens up space for me to then go after that thing, whatever it is. You get to fill in the blank for yourself. So I cannot stress this way enough. Connect to self. Connect to self. If you're in live with me, I want you to either type it in the comments, connect with self, or I want you to say it out loud, connect with self. If you happen to come in and see the replay, I want you to do exactly what I'm telling you to do. Type it in the comments, or I want you to say it, like connect with self. And I want you to close your eyes, and I just want you to say it, connect with self. Connect with self. And just let yourself, like, let it roll off your tongue and then just let it sit there. Connect with self. You might have stuff happening all around you, but when you take a moment and you say, oh, connect with self, let it sit. There's something in that pause. There's something in that space where you say it and then you just don't let anything else come after it. So really what you're doing in that moment is you are connecting with you. You are allowing yourself connect with self. Just sit with it. You'd be surprised at if you do that often enough, that just that pause and that moment of silence and saying it out of your mouth is one step closer to you connecting with self. There's something in that silence. There's something in that pause. There's something in that that lets you know, ooh, this is a simple step to help me connect with self. What is another way that you can connect with self? This is a way that helps me. I like to journal it. I have a dear friend, Kathy Hampton. She is the owner of Wellside Retreats, and journaling is something that she promotes. She talks about often. And there is a cathartic way, or I was going to say catharticism. Is that a word? Catharticism? I don't know. I'm not going to make that up, but it's very cathartic to write. That's another way of connecting with self. Why? Because you can write things out that you may have in your head, that you've been thinking about, that you may be troubled about, and just put it on paper. Now, it might not mean that just by merely writing it out that you have totally gotten rid of whatever it is, but it is a way to connect with your emotions, connect with your feelings, so that you're not bottling things up on the inside. That's what happens when you sit still and you take that time. So journaling is a way to connect with self. There's so many different ways or so many different directions that I can go in with this concept of connecting with self, wellness, well-being, self-care. There's so many different layers to this part of the conversation, but just remember that you are worthy of and you deserve to connect with yourself. You deserve to stop. You deserve to slow down. You deserve to give your mind a break. You deserve to give your body a break. You deserve to go inward on a regular basis. Now, when I say regular basis, I am going to recommend that on a daily basis, you find a way to connect with self. Now, I know if you're not used to it or you're feeling kind of wonky about it, oh, I don't know if I should do that because it's selfish, then you might want to start with one day and then work your way up to, okay, every day I'm going to find a way to connect with self. connect with self. So I've already given you a couple of ways. I talked about my daughter and her spa day. I may as well call it that. Doing a facial. She says she may watch a movie, read her book. So those are three things right there. I talked about taking a bath. Going to therapy is a way to connect with self, because a therapist can help you process some things that allow you to connect more with some things that are going on the inside, right? So that is a way to connect with self. I talked about journaling. So I've already kind of fire hosed a couple of different options to help you do just that. Another simple way to connect with self is to just sit down. Right? Just sit down and be. I demonstrated how to connect with self just by saying, connect with self. Stillness, right? Breathing. I talk about this often. Taking deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling is connecting with self, because sometimes we're so like, oh my gosh, so wired. And reconnecting ourselves with just a normal rhythm of heart rate and breathing is taking deep breaths, inhales and exhales. So those are the things that if you're taking notes, I would encourage you to just write those things down. And the last thing I'm going to say before we get into the final announcements, before we end the live stream, is to give yourself the opportunity to ask yourself the question and then follow through is, how am I connecting with myself right now? And in what ways do I need to do a better job of connecting with myself? And some of the ideas that I shared here tonight are things that may be useful to you to incorporate. So that concludes not only tonight's conversation, tonight's fourth way to be intentional about finding your joy, but it also concludes for the week. So I said, I would be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So tonight is the last night. Before I wrap up for tonight, I do want to share a few announcements with you. I made reference to my brand new Amazon #1 bestseller. I do want to say that, and I'm grateful for that, is available on Amazon. So I'm here now. Finding Joy After the Storm is available on Amazon. So if you have not gotten your copy, or if you have not gotten a copy for someone that you think may be at a point where they're looking for how to find that joy. Now, the backdrop of this book for me is finding joy after my divorce. Now, there may be something else that you might look to discover joy after, and this might be the perfect tool for you to do just that. A friend of mine said, when I read the book, I realized there's so many nuggets in the book that it doesn't matter whether you're divorced or not, but if you are walking, living, breathing, then there are some tools and nuggets in here for you. So I do encourage you that as you are considering gifts for the holiday season, then do consider I'm Here Now What? Finding Joy After the Storm, again, available on Amazon. I also want to mention that I am also kicking off the companion program to the book, which launches on January the 29th. Registration is now open. And so you want to consider that as well, especially if you're looking to figure out like, okay, the new year is coming and I don't really believe or promote resolutions. But I do feel like, we are in a space where we get to start choosing what next looks like for us. And so if the beginning of the year is your time, this is a perfect opportunity to consider the program, Finding Your Joy Live. Let me say this really quickly before I wrap up. So you might be saying, okay, what is this program intended to do? Who is it for? And why should I consider it? So there's three things to think about. This program is intended to help you to be able to process whatever your transition point is, whether it's divorce or loss of something else, another relationship, another job. If you're trying to move to a what's next for me, it is intended to help you process that, to also pivot away from, I call it the emotional strain of that transition. We all know that when we're trying to figure stuff out or we want to do something and we're not quite sure how to do it, there's some emotion attached to that, whether it's frustration, whether it's anger, confusion. So this program is intended to help you pivot away from that so that you can then, number three, push forward to find joy for your future. There it is again, find joy for your future. So this program is for you if you are a woman who perhaps you're separated and divorce is around the corner. Maybe you're already divorced. You're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it through this? Maybe you're an empty nester. Your kids are grown. They're gone out of the house. And you're like, oh, well, what do I do now? Or you might even be trying to figure out how this thing called self-care, how connecting with yourself really is supposed to look. Maybe that's you. Or maybe you're on a point you're like, you know what, I'm really just ready to create something new for myself. Whether you're trying to reinvent yourself, whether you're trying to create yourself because you don't know what yourself looks like, loves, desires, deserves, or what's fulfilling to you, then this program is for you. So again, registration is open. You say, well, how do I register? I'm glad that you asked. Registration is at truesynergy.org/finding your joy. There is some other information out there about the program. There's Q&As out there also. So if you are interested, you know, that sounds like you, one of the descriptions that I just used a couple minutes ago, then you do want to claim your spot. Or maybe you know someone who you've been in conversation with, and some of the things that you all have been talking about sound pretty familiar to what I just mentioned. So you want to share this out with your community. I will say this in closing, is that the program has limited spaces available. This is an intimate space that I'm opening up. I like to create what I call sacred space for women who need it. And so, and I think we all do at some point or another. And so because of that, I am limiting the enrollment to 15 women. Okay. So if you know this is you, you don't want to wait, you want to secure your spot, because once the spots are gone, then the next session is not until later in 2024. So I do want to mention that. The last thing I will say, and this truly is the last thing, is that you may go out and look, and I'll just be very transparent. For the Premier experience, it's $297. For VIP experience, you can upgrade for $497. But I want you to hear that and know that there are options for payment plans. I know it's holiday time, and I know people are trying to manage their money. So if you say, oh yeah, I want to, but there is an option available for you. You just have to let me know, and the instructions will tell you when you go to truesynergy.org, finding your joy, will tell you exactly what to do if you know that you want to participate, but you might need to kind of stretch some things out. Okay. So just know that that is an option. If you're listening to this and you kind of pondering in your head, then just know that. So on that note, I want to wrap this up. I do thank you for being with me all week, whether you were here live or whether you checked out the replay. I do appreciate your time. Do share this out. I'm going to be coming back to you next week, the end of next week, with a very special conversation with a special guest. You'll hear more about that in the days to come. But for now, I thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. But until I do, take care of yourselves, and yes, be well.